Welcome back to another episode of the Experts in Fire podcast. I'm your host, Mike Vennard, and with me today is Randy Mowry. Today's episode is Spring Project Checklist for On-Site Fire Pits. Let's get into it. Today's episode is brought to you by the Flamecraft Tondo Gas Fire Pit. The Tondo features a two-piece interlocking design that's easy to assemble and light enough to ship ground. With 36 possible color combinations, it's easy to customize the Tondo to match your style. Go with a solid color scheme or mix and match your favorite shades for a two-tone look. The Tondo's powerful stainless steel with brass jet burner system also creates maximum flames while using half the fuel of standard burners. Build your Tondo today by visiting www.woodlanddirect.com or call 800-919-1904 to talk to an NFI certified expert. Hey Randy, how you doing, brother?
Hey, good, Mike. How's it going over there, sir?
Well, you know what? There's a lot of snow on the ground right now.
There is a lot of snow on the ground.
See, I started bragging to my wife and told her, we're through January. I'm the happiest I've ever been in the state of Michigan because there just hasn't been a ton of snow. And it isn't the snow that bugs me. It's the follow-up to the snow, right? It's the slushy roads, and then the salt gets laid down, and it just turns into crap to drive in.
Just a mess. Yeah, piles of dirt on the roads here in a couple days. And then it just lingers. It lingers because it's so cold out. Goodness.
It's funny because people think of snow who aren't from, a metro area like this, and they think of it as this beautiful white powder, which is so true. It's beautiful when it's coming down. But then all of a sudden, you have to live in it, and those snow plows go by, and the snow's actually dirty. It's dark. It's got mud mixed in with it, and you're just driving around like, do I live in Gotham City or something, man? You know what, though? We are going to talk about spring stuff because that's what I do this time of year. I play in the snow, I shovel the snow, and then I start thinking spring. And we're going to kind of walk through. Randy, you and I have both worked shows. We've been, around the country and working with especially architects and landscape architects and working through just getting ready for the spring. And I know these guys, they put a ton of work in now so they can set up their game plan for when it thaws and they can start working. Of course, in the south and out southwest, they're already and still working. We've been talking to folks all over the place they feel like winter never came. So what we wanted to do is just kind of put together a checklist for on-site fire pits. So as they start to walk through these and get ready to go out to the sites and setting up for them, here are the main things to remember as you're getting ready to go out there. And it's based on the number of phone calls we take from people who have forgotten.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a great idea because spring will be here before you know it. And in these cold eastern states here on the east side of the country where it's going to be cold for a bit yet, we do want to try to get this stuff planned ahead of time.
Absolutely. So if I'm an architect or I'm a landscaper, I'm a landscape architect, I'm getting ready to go out and put a fire pit built in. And, I pay attention to Instagram and different posts, and I just love seeing what landscapers do. It's gorgeous. And they're building a lot of these fire pits themselves, right? What are some key things, Randy, that they should keep in mind as they're preparing and maybe even add to their checklist if these things aren't in there yet?
It's something that I should say that's commonly overlooked. I'll say it like that is, these on-site fire pits that we're talking about, just so folks know, and this could be commercial and or residential that our contractors are working on. These things could be built out of concrete, cement block, and then they're going to do some type of stone over top of them, or maybe it's a pour-in-place concrete fire pit, or even some Corten steel fire pits. But these are all on-site built fire pits, not something that you're purchasing. It's going to be delivered on a freight truck. And so some of the things that we see right away with those types of fire pits is ventilation, like vents somewhere along the bottoms of these fire pits, Mike, for airflow underneath of them.
I think that is one of the biggest pieces that gets overlooked, Randy, and I'm so glad you brought that one up because my mind went in a million other directions, but it's so significantly significant that people feel it's insignificant. I'm going to see how many times I can use this word. But it really is so important. You know, I was listening to one of the training courses on the NFI's website yesterday, and they were talking about this very thing. And for all of our landscape pros out there, or anyone who builds fire pits, it's so vitally important because it will be one of the first questions that gets asked if there were ever an accident. What type of ventilation? There are codes and there are rules to it. So, Randy, can you just talk to the value of that venting? And I know you work with some high-end landscapers, how they've kind of overcome that stainless steel look, because that's usually people are like, I'm building this beautiful thing and I got this ugly stainless steel piece sitting there. How do you overcome some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. The ventilation is so important because we want any excess gas that may leak or get trapped in the cavity of that fire pit to escape. You know, whether that's natural gas or propane, if there's any gas that is getting into the belly, the void inside that cavity of the fire pit, we need that to get out of there. And so that's where the importance of these vents come into play. It's a cross ventilation. You're going to have a vent on each side, and that air is going to be able to pass through. And as it's doing so, it's going to get rid of any excess gas that is built up underneath that fire pit burner itself. From an aesthetic value, a lot of my contractors, they get very creative with these vents because on average, a vent needs to be like 18 square inches. Put in perspective, like most vents are 3 inches by 6 inches, stainless steel, and it gets mounted to the side, like you mentioned, Mike. However, you know, with some of these landscape contractors, they make it into where they'll start cutting their stone to make like a louvered look along the bottom of the fire pit for that air. So they're still using the materials that they're building the fire pits out of to create their vents, and then maybe just putting some type of mesh on the inside of the fire pit. And that mesh is really so that you don't get critters getting in there to create a new home, any kind of debris from, you know, blocking. And that's where they're kind of putting the vent on the inside, but using the materials that they're building the fire pit out of on the outside in a unique way to kind of disguise it for their client so that it's really not seen as this big stainless steel vent.
Those are some great ideas. I know we've worked with different folks as well who have come up with super creative ways, almost like weep holes in your brick. You know, as masons lay brick, they have their different spots where they leave weep holes. It just becomes an art form at that point. So knowing that that's a part of what needs to be done is so valuable in the preparation process, because it's not just a drawing of here, boom, this is how it's going to be. You need to add that piece into the drawing itself so that you can make sure it's taken care of. And remember, one thing we talk about all the time on this podcast, safety, safety, safety. We want to create and help create amazing experiences around fire safely.
Absolutely. No, yeah, and that's why the ventilation is so important. And I feel that just, you know, over the years of doing this, that is one of the first things that are overlooked. And it's easy to overlook because it's just not something that it's thought about. More and more architects are building those vents in, but it is still something that it is missed. And then the folks have to go back in and recut them. And that's not something that anybody wants to do, especially if you're building something out of a poured concrete and that vent was, you know, missed pre-built, because that's like missing a basement window when you're pouring a concrete for a basement for a house and try to go back in and cut it. It's not a fun job.
You have fire-related questions, and we have answers. You can email us your questions at podcast@woodlanddirect.com or give us a call at 586-221-3638. We would love to be able to answer them right here on the Experts in Fire podcast. in your mind, Randy, what would come next?
Sticking with the lower part of the fire pit itself, electricity, not getting that electric ran into the inside of the fire pit itself. On commercial properties, nearly everywhere in the country, it's gonna require electricity for the fire pit so that it has a safety valve, meaning if that burner blows out and that burner is going to recognize it, it shuts the power off to it. And or in a lot of cases, they're going to require some type of emergency stop or a dial timer to operate the fire pit. And in order to have those two elements, you need electric for those. So we need that power inside of the fire pit.
Yeah, one of the common things that we'll get phone calls on and say, "Hey, we built this thing. It's in place. We need the burner and pan." You'll ask the question, "Do you have electrical there?" And they're like, "No. Do I need it?"
Yes, yeah. And the last thing somebody wants to do is saw cut $50,000 or whatever the number is they've got in concrete to try to fix it. Are there options if there is no power to retrofit? There is. It's battery operated. The maintenance staff is going to have to be changing batteries every week, probably. There are options, Mike, but we're talking about a pre-construction checklist, and that's why just run the electricity in the front end, save yourself a lot of time. The overall longevity of the product is going to be a lot greater than running something on the batteries.
I've had that conversation with folks before, even back when I was selling. It isn't just popping up pavers. It's popping up pavers, digging a trench. You've already laid the base work for all of
Right.
these pavers that are sitting there so that they will look beautiful for a long time. The prep work is what makes it all happen. And now they had to pop them up and mess with all that prep work. You just don't want to do it. So, okay, we've got venting and we got power. Make sure you've got a plan for how you're going to get your power there. And I can say most of the folks we work with, Randy, correct me if I'm wrong, are running that power alongside of the gas line. Is that correct?
Correct, which is the next item on our checklist is the gas supply line. Whether it's commercial or residential, we would love to have that conversation with whoever is going to be doing the purchasing of that fire pit burner and getting that information back to the design and architect team, because the BTU is extremely important. If we're talking about a fire pit that is 10 feet long versus a fire pit that is 5 feet long, it has a different BTU for the burner. So we want to make sure that the gas professional is sizing the gas line correctly to get into that fire pit, because that is one of our first inquiries to our clients. These are our questions as well, is what is the BTU that you have available, or is the gas line ran yet? So the gas supply is really important as well, Mike.
Absolutely. And, something to consider is not just the BTUs for the fire pit itself. How many things are going to daisy chain off of this supply line as well? Because most people aren't just putting a fire pit out there. There are aspects of fire throughout these these landscape architects are building better than a lot of people's kitchens outside, right? So you have to consider as well, is that gas line going to be running to the fire pit as well as to a barbecue grill, as well as to maybe another tabletop, and have that all planned for the future. Absolutely, we are talking about fire pits here, so we want to make sure you have that sized properly. But if there's anything else coming down the line of that line, you're going to want to add the BTUs to that to make sure that the proper size line is being used.
Correct. Yeah. Anything and everything that's going to be on the line, it's pretty common on a residential property, as you mentioned, when you're talking about different elements where they may have tiki torches, pool heaters that are another really high BTU element. And then the commercial properties, they might be just running a dedicated line for that, so it is still important on commercial. I've had in the past where I get the phone call after everything is built for a burner that would typically require 500,000 BTUs to find out that they only had 100,000 BTUs there. That's a real major difference in what the fire pit was built for to what can actually be supplied from a sizing standpoint. So it is really important.
So venting, power, and then the size or the supply line for the gas itself that's going to be coming out to the unit. What else, Randy?
It's going to be the burner. We love custom fire pits. We are never opposed to custom fire pits. However, if they're looking to try to keep them with a stock product, now we're at the very top of the fire pit. We're talking about where the burner is going to be placed, Mike. Let's just use a linear fire pit. Let's just say that they want something, 8 foot long. 8 foot long, not a problem. It's a stock fire pit length. It's usually the width on a fire pit burner is where the challenges are. And as I mentioned, we can build custom, but to try to help our contractors and our architects with their design, if they're building something that's 8 foot long, if they want to build it so that it'll support a stock burner, they want to bring the inside, the support wise on the inside, maybe to 8 inches wide. A lot of those fire pit burners might only be in a stock 8 inches wide, 10 inches, possibly 14. So what I see a lot of times is they may build something that's 8 feet long, but then they'll have that opening at the very top 18 inches wide. Okay. Which we can do. It's a custom build. It's not a problem. Sometimes these projects come down to budget on these types of elements in the specialties category, and they want to use something stock. So if we can help with that part of it on the front end, it does make a difference in getting something possibly much sooner. Because in some cases, I might be able to get a stock burner out within a couple weeks, where a custom might take 8 weeks out. That's why I do like to make this part of the pre-build checklist and help them out.
For your landscape architects who are going, I'm doing 5, 6, 10, however many backyards a year that I can do, and I'm watching a lot of these guys on Instagram just grow. It's important to have an idea of stock sizes available, not just, and I'm thinking in advance, not just for, hey, I know the size it's going to be, I know how to build the pit so that this pan is just going to set right in place with the burner. I know how it's all going to function, right? Speed, safety, safety, but they're able to be efficient as well as effective. I'm thinking about for the future too.
Oh, absolutely.
Because these things sit in the elements.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a couple landscape contractors that they were building these fire pits that required custom burners all the time. And it was a step back, and here's a list of some stock sizes you can use. And so now over the last 5, 6 years, now I just receive an email, hey, I need this one, I need this one, I need this one, because now they're just stock. They know what they're working with. They know the dimensions, and they can just order it. We ship it, they drop it in place, and they're good to go. So they're building specifically towards the burners now on the top half.
Absolutely. And one of the tricks there, as you're presenting to your client, we can absolutely do custom. And I'm not trying to push folks away from it, but I'm always thinking about something is going to need to be replaced at some point. If you're just using stock, you can literally say, okay, here's the problem, this rusted, this happened, whatever, and it can be replaced quickly. And most of our burner companies that we work with, manufacturers, have lifetime warranties on their burners, but keep in mind it's not on the pans. The pans are sitting in the elements. So at some point, this stuff is going to need to be replaced. They're going to call you. Man, this can just happen in a hurry, and it takes some of that stress out of life. And as the pro, you can go in, swap out, be out the door, and they're back to enjoying their fire pit. Being on the front end of a project is so much more fun than coming in the middle or the end. However, if you're a pro out there and you're going, uh-oh, it's okay. We have solutions for you. It's one of our key phrases we use around here at Woodland Direct is to be solution oriented. We can help, and we'll definitely help. And then we can help for the future as well, preparing with things like this spring project checklists for on-site fire pits. Randy, is there anything else that you could think of for this episode?
The last thing is we get to the pretty part, and that's really going to be the media that goes on top of the burner that's going to cover the burner itself, where all that flame's going to come up through it. Media can be lava rock that's designed for fire that looks similar to what you would put in your the landscape of your house, on your, around your bushes and stuff, but it's designed for a fire. You can get into ceramic stones. We never want to put real stones. There's ceramic stones out there that are called river rock. It's not river rock. We don't want to pull rock out of the river and put it in our fire pit because they're going to blow up is what's going to happen. They're just going to get to a heat. They're going to heat up and they're going to break apart. It could be dangerous. So we want to make sure that we're using the correct media for the fire pit. But, Mike, you've got lava rock, the river stones, the ceramic balls, fire glass. It's endless. There's so much available as far as the media goes. But it is the pretty part of the fire pit.
That is one of the key components for a pan, but it is the highlight of all the work that you put in.
Yes.
Is right there.
Yes.
And it's amazing to me. Every time, Randy, I watch a video, our manufacturers will send us different videos, and we'll make videos here in-house. And you see the difference between lava. I love lava rock. I just think it's cool. You put logs on it. It looks sweet. And then all of a sudden they'll pan across that tumbled lava rock.
Oh,
and I'm
so
like,
different.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, that is so cool, right?
Yeah.
I'm like a kid walking around a car dealership for the first time. Ooh, I like that one. Ooh, I like that one.
Right.
Let's just recap real fast. We went through venting on the checklist. We went through power, making sure you have a plan for power out there. Your gas line, running the proper size of gas line to make sure that you're going to be able to feed the BTUs, not just for the fire pit, but for the whole project. And then sizing the pan, custom versus stock sizes, but then getting familiar with how those pans function as well. It's going to help our pros design that fire pit so that they know exactly how they're going to move forward. I believe we have another episode out there as well where we talk about maintenance. Maybe not. Maybe we should do a quick episode about maintaining fire pits and getting them started. Another excellent reason for using pans is being able to access everything down below the media. And then, Randy, the pretty part, the media, and having a plan for how that media is going to sit on there, where it's going to go, and making sure you're using the right media. And I know, because we struggle with homeowners, I know our pros out there, they start talking to folks about the cost sometimes that is associated with that media. But you brought up an excellent point, Randy. Just going out to the river and throwing some river rocks into... People don't understand that those stones are porous or can be porous. And if it gets cold or wet, or when that heat hits those stones and begins to get the steam building up inside, it can make for, I hate using this word, it can make for a combustive type of environment where that stone is going to break to pieces, and sometimes forcefully break to pieces.
Yeah, absolutely, because you're building up pressure into like this, this small little rock. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I feel like we could sit here and just talk about this stuff all day long. It is what we love. It's what we love doing. It's a part of what we live it. My neighbor just texted me the other day and said, "Hey, I need, it's one of those things." And I love him. He's a great guy. And I'm like, heck yeah, we're going to get you taken care of, brother. It is neat to be a part of an industry that reaches so many other industries, Randy. That, for me, is super exciting because you're not just dealing with, hi, I'm a track home builder and I put fireplaces in, or I'm a landscape architect and all I do is this. We get to incorporate fire into so many different arenas that we get to be involved with those arenas. So to me, it's exciting because I don't like the mundane. So, Randy, bro, thank you for being with us again.
Oh,
I
my
appreciate
pleasure.
it. Randy takes time out of his day being on the phone and working with his customers to do this with us and for all of our pros out there. So, Randy, man, you're always the best.
Oh, my pleasure. I love it. Everybody stay safe out there and get those checklists put together and give us a call. Happy to help.
And thank you for joining us for another episode. We'll see you next time for Whatever Justin Tells Me to Say right here. Join us next time for Introducing the Tondo Gas Fire Pit by Flamecraft. We'll see you then.